Hello friends, welcome back to Today in 10 or Less with Mr. Cass. Now you see that this is September 10th, 2013. Yesterday I said it was 2014. Why? I don't know. I'm getting old. Bear with me. So, thanks for coming back. Thanks for watching this. I want to let you know and walk you through what we did today. We started off with a fire starter. Now this is a really important fire starter to me. It's very near and dear to my heart. Why? Because I dig sharing. So here's the fire starter. You can view it just down below this post, this video blog. You can view it just down below in the actual typed portion of my blog. Okay? So head down there for it. The fire starter today was, why is it important to share ideas? And how can a bad idea, in quotes, be a good thing? Well, we had a really nice discussion, actually, about why it's important to share your ideas. And what we all came up with is that it's important to share ideas because we as people are based in community. Even when we were cavemen and cavewomen, there were people who had different strengths and different skills. And we all worked together. Some of us hunted, some of us gathered, some of us cooked, some of us... All of that working together involved the sharing of ideas and the sharing of skills. Now we discussed that that was going to be really important in this class because there's even stuff that Mr. Cass himself is not so super good at. You know, it must be hard to believe, I'm sure, that there's lots of stuff that I'm not good at. Right? But you guys are really, really good at certain things that I'm just not good at all. And also, vice versa, I'm really good at stuff and I know a lot of stuff that maybe you guys aren't so good at or don't know. The great thing is that if we work together to share our ideas, we're going to get along just fine, and we're going to be much stronger together than we ever could be as individuals. The second part of that question was, how can a bad idea be a good thing? How can a bad idea be a good thing? Mr. Cass, if it's a bad idea, it's not a good thing. But wait, our discussion today focused on if we look at our mistakes, if we look at our bad ideas, the things that didn't really work out for us, and if we analyze those bad ideas, if we look at them really closely, we can learn from them. And learning is what we're all here for. That's what we're here for, is to learn as much as we possibly can. And you know, if you're like me, you learn a lot more from your mistakes than you do from your successes. Because sometimes when we have a success, we're like, what's up? What's up? I don't even have to look at this. I'm so good. What's up? We do that a lot, don't we? When we have successes, we don't often take time to say, okay, why was I successful? We just go, ha-ha! And we don't take the time to learn about it. But when we make mistakes, when we have bad ideas, oftentimes we want to figure out what went wrong. So we'll ask the question why over and over again. Why did this happen? Why? Well, that's the most important question in education, isn't it? Why? We talked about that the other day. Why is the most important question in education? Because that's how we learn. Figuring out how stuff works is half of our battle. The other half is actually using it. And that's what we're going to come to right now, because after we discussed all of this, and we had this great discussion, we got started on our first unit pack. Unit 1, dispositions, process, and traits of good writers in writing. Huh? Disposition, process, traits, what do those things mean? Well, we'll get to that. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. But first things first, we had to learn a little bit more about what I'm expecting in this classroom every day. And that is that we become code talkers. Now, in every class, some of us knew of the book Code Talkers and knew who the code talkers were. I'll give you a 30-second history about who the code talkers were so that you can understand where I'm going with this. Now, in World War I and World War II, the code talkers were these groups of Native American Indians who would go off, and there would be one in each battalion, and they would have the radio communications for that battalion. Now, what happened was, when we Americans were over speaking English or trying to speak Morse code and talk to each other about strategy and about information that we didn't want the enemies to hear, well, they could crack every code we had. They knew how to speak English, they knew how to get Morse code, they could decode all of our stuff except Native American languages. They did not know how to crack that code, and so when battalions needed to communicate to one another, we used code talkers, these Native American Indians who came over and really helped us to be successful in our military endeavors. They had a skill and a knowledge that they used to their advantage. They knew something nobody else knew. They thought about things nobody else thought about. And we use that to our advantage. Fast forward to 2013, in this classroom, we are going to be code talkers together as well. What do you mean, Mr. Cass? I don't know Native American English. I don't know Native American words. That's okay. Because we're talking about code, C-O-D-E. Code talking. For all of the information we get. So we get information flying at our faces, flying into our ears, rattling around in our brain all day, every day. All day, every day. But until we have a system, until we have a piece of information that we are going to apply to this whole jumble that's coming at us, all that information can tend to get lost and can become useless. Well, we don't want anything to become useless. We want to be able to use everything. So we talked about how we're going to be code talkers this year. Now, I filled out this first page of notes that you got. Okay, I filled that out today with you guys. We all filled it out. You can check for that right down below. So I'm going to give you a really shortened version of what code is. Code, C-O-D-E. That's how we're going to look at information that we get this year. Code, C-O-D-E. The information comes at us. And first things first, we have to make it meaningful. We have to make it apply to us. So we have to connect to that information. We have to connect to that information. Whether it's to ourselves, to other people, to other information, we need to connect to it. We need to make it meaningful to us. Otherwise, why do we care about it? Why do we care about it? We need to connect. That is the basic goal. Just like I was saying with our fire starter, we need to connect to one another to share ideas. We also need to connect to this information to make ourselves better. Once we connect to that information, we need to organize that information. See, with all this stuff, with all these connections we're making, we are really trying to make information meaningful to us. But if we don't organize all of that, it's all going to get lost. It's going to become trash. It's going to become those crumpled papers that are all up in the bottom of your locker. And you're like, I don't even want to go through this. And so what do? You pick them up, throw them out. Don't throw out any information. Don't throw out any information because you never know what's going to be useful to you. Connect to it and now organize it. Organize it by type or use. Organize it by importance. Organize it by connection. Organize it by category. But in order to make sense of it all, you have to have a way of organizing, grouping, and remembering the information that you get. Otherwise, you're going to forget it. We don't want you to forget it. The next thing you have to do you have to deep process the information. You have to deep process all this information you've connected to. All this information that you've now organized. You need to deep process it. If I say I'm going to give you a second to process that information, what I'm really saying is, I'm going to give you a second to think about it. That's what deep processing is. Now you're thinking. You're analyzing. You are taking apart that information so that you can eventually use it. Because remember, if you don't use something, it ends up in the garbage can. It's useless. What do you do with useless things? You throw it out. I don't want any of the information to get thrown out. It's all going to be useful as long as you take the time to process it. I told you that your education is kind of like bologna. Because in the process of bologna, they take a whole bunch of the other, of making bologna, they take a whole bunch of the other junk. The stuff that's left over after you've packaged up the ribs, after you packaged up the flank steaks, after you packaged up the shoulder steaks, the rump roast, the loin. After you packaged all that up, there's still a lot of good meat hidden. And so what they do is they take all that other stuff, they process it out, and you're left with all of the good parts. And you've separated all the junk. But that can only happen if you're processing it. So your education is like bologna. Go home and tell your parents that. Hey Mom, I'm eating my education tonight. Or don't tell them that. I don't know. Maybe that was stupid. But either way, you just heard it, so deal with it. Last but not least, once you have connected to the information, once you've organized it, once you've deep processed it, now that information becomes an idea. Now you can use it. But you have to use it. You have to actually be willing to use that information. Otherwise, your ideas get lost, and the world needs to hear your ideas. Why? because you are an individual and you can help. You must elaborate on ideas. You must elaborate on your ideas. You must share them. You must use them. Why? Because if you don't, the world misses out on all of that you have to offer. When you share ideas, when you use them, they become meaningful to you. And they can become meaningful to other people as we communicate, as we make those connections to one another. There will be no garbage can learning in my classroom this year. None. I promise you that. As long as you can join me in becoming a code talker. That's it for today. It is so hot. I am sweating so much. Hopefully, you guys can stay cool. Thank you for coming and visiting. I'll be back tomorrow with more information. Have a good one.